Well, I have the finish work done on the cabinet, and I have it sitting upside down because I'm about to work on remounting the base. There's a problem, and I didn't expect this problem but became aware of it as I was working on it. You can see from the water damage that this thing had. Let me get this up there. You can see that this is pretty much warped out of line, so getting those dowels back into the holes on the base is not going to be easy. And we have the same thing on both sides. Now, I don't believe that those sides warped any worse since I had the bottom off. I think it was pretty much warped out of shape when I got it. Considering the water damage this thing had, it's amazing that I even got it this far. You know, I'm hoping to be able to figure out a way to get this back together. If you remember from my earlier videos about how this base almost just fell apart when I took it off and started taking the angle screws out of it, everything just kind of fell apart because it was so water damaged. So that's probably how it was when it was in. Also, these pieces were not glued. The glue was loose because of the dampness. I glued that. But now that I glued these sides, I may have a real hard time getting this back, the base back onto the bottom of this machine. This is my plan. I'm going to cut in a miter box so I got the exact right length. I'm going to cut a piece of wood to use as a wedge and put it up right about here. And then I'm going to very carefully use wood clamps to kind of pull these sides down just a little bit, just enough to get the base back on. There goes my clock, 9:30. Anyways, same thing with this side. Now I got to be very careful in doing that because what could happen is I could crack this or split something. If that happens, I don't know. I'm at the point of wondering if this thing shouldn't have been just thrown into the dump before I even started this project. We'll see how I do with getting the base back together. Here's what I've done so far. I've custom cut these pieces of wood to wedge these sides out to about where they should be. And the hole centers of these right here, all of these holes really, but the hole centers need to be 27 1/8. I measured the base, and right now that's what I have. I'm sorry, it's 28 1/8. I meant 28 1/8. So that's what we have. So I've got the center ones spread far enough to match. So now the trick is going to be to kind of carefully clamp these sides a little bit to try to bring this one and this one in enough. Same thing on the other side to get them back into the holes, the matching holes in the base. That might be a challenge. And at that point, when I start clamping these sides, I have to do it very carefully because if it splits, anything splits or breaks or cracks, at that point I'm all done, and that means that all of the work I put into this project, which is substantial, is for nothing. That'll be a shame if that happens, but those things do happen. I'm only going to glue it here and here. That's where it was originally glued. That glue, of course, with the dampness, had let loose a long time ago. It's also bolted together with 4 bolts. So I'm going to put glue here, here when I finally fasten this base on, here and here, but not here. I'm not even gluing these dowels in. I don't think I need to, and at this point, who knows what I'm going to run into, but I'm going to see if I can get this base on without splitting the sides of this cabinet. I think once the base is on, I don't think the cabinet will split. We'll find out. So this is what I'm doing so far. I'm squeezing these sides to try to square them up better. I've got them close. I'm afraid to go a little further because I'm really afraid I'm going to crack or split something, but we'll see. I took the dowels out and put them all in the base because I think it might be easier to work with the dowels in the base rather than putting them up in the cabinet itself. So I'm going to try to see if I can get this base to line up with the dowels to line up with all those holes. We'll see how well I do. Well, believe it or not, so far I've got all the dowels in and nothing is split or broke or cracked yet, except this dowel here cracked. It doesn't quite line up. So I might have to go in with a tool, a screwdriver or something, just get some of the splinters of the wood out of the way so it'll go down flat. But I think I'm going to make it. I'm not really sure yet. So I'm about ready to put some glue in the center two pieces here and over here. I've got the bolts back in with an extra washer to compensate for the lack of the laminate that used to be under there. And all of the dowels are in their holes. They're all lined up, so all I have to do is use the rubber mallet and pound this thing all the way down. So far nothing is split or cracked. But I can tell you, anybody watching this, fixing this cabinet was a challenge. I think it would have been a challenge for a professional, but for me as an amateur, it was a real challenge. I'm still not sure that I'm going to be able to get this thing together without cracking something, but I've got it all the dowels are in the holes. They're all lined up and this thing is part way down. I don't think it's going to do anything clamping it all or getting the base all the way down to where it's supposed to go. Once I've done that, I think I'm going to be okay. So we'll see. I'm about ready to glue and reseat the base and tighten those 4 center bolts. Well, I've got all the dowels are in the holes. My only concern is this one that cracked. I'm going to have to kind of, if it won't go down flat, I'm going to, as I'm bringing that base tight up against the cabinet, I may have to chisel some splinters out to make sure that dowel doesn't interfere with it coming down all the way, and I don't think it will. But all the dowels are in. I got the clamps off, so I didn't crack anything. That could have been the death of this project. It really could have been. And who knows, this project could still die. I don't know. In order to glue, to put glue up in here and down here, down on these, where these go together, I've got to lay it down on its front and run glue down, let gravity pull the glue down. Once it's done that and I've ran glue down in those cracks, then I'll tighten the base down all the way. I've got these 4 bolts in. They're tightened enough to keep the base from coming up off the dowels. God forbid that should happen, because it was really a challenge getting them all to line up and to get this base back on this cabinet. To be honest with you folks, I didn't think I was going to pull it off. I really didn't. But we'll see. I've still got a ways to go yet. Let's see how I can get the gluing done. I had to put this clamp back on and squeeze it so that this piece of wood would line up in the slot. Everything is lined up now, and I'm about ready to lay it down and run some glue down those slots. I got to put some masking in the front and some paper towels to make sure I don't get glue out on the other side. I'm not going to put that much in, just enough to run it down in there so that when I clamp it, when I screw this thing down tight, it's glued here, 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 and here. It does not need to be glued on these edges. It may have been originally. I don't know if it was. It's hard to tell. This thing was so severely water damaged. I'm probably one of the very few people that would have endeavored to want to try to fix and restore this blasted thing. But I had one chance in my life to get one of these orthophonic Victrolas that was in pristine condition. And unfortunately, a stealthier, grasping hoarder almost ran me over to tell the seller I'll take it. I never even had a chance to even open up my mouth. That person that actually got that, I think already owns 10 or 20 of them, I don't know. He lives in another state now, and he took his hoard with him. So I only wanted one, and the one that I got is this one. We'll see if I can get this thing done and actually get it back together to where it's somewhat reasonable. Well, YouTube folks, who's ever watching this, not too many people watch my videos anymore. That's okay. I make them more just to have a record of what I've actually done here. The base is on. It's all glued up. It's tightened down as tight as it'll go. And it's going to be as good as it's going to get. It doesn't quite match up. It doesn't get all the way down to the side like I'd like it to, but it is what it is. I couldn't do, with my meager skills, I couldn't do much better, and the dogs were no help, I can tell you that. They're an impediment sometimes, but it doesn't go down tight. The sides, and that I kind of figured that would be the case. I've got it is the 4 bolts as tight as I can get them without fear of cracking this thing to smithereens. So it is what it is. So I'm going to upright it, and I'm going to start putting some of the parts back together on it. And it is once again sitting back up on its base. The base that I pulled off and reconstructed. So it's coming along. Okay, I have it back on its base, and I've got it upright. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Nothing split apart or blew up in my face so far, so I would have never believed I could have pulled this off. Of course, you can see it's pretty blemished. I did the best I could with the veneer on it. It is what it is. I couldn't do any better on it. But it's up on the base, and it's actually got feet underneath. And the base is glued, as I said, it's tight. So the next step is I'm going to start putting some of it together. I am missing this ball bearing latch for this door. I'm assuming that it may have been in here when I started this project, but somehow I lost it. If I can't find it, I'm going to have to find a replacement, or just close the door and hope that it stays closed. I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. But the other ones are here. Let me go to the back of it. There should be some, there's cobwebs in it. I'll have to get them out. They must have gotten in there through the time I had this thing, because I had it all cleaned out when I started working on it. But anyways, there should be some pieces of wood in here that are not here, I think. These are where the record albums go. They slide in, and I don't know if I need, maybe this is just enough. A stop is all I need. The back, I never got the back with it. It's a tongued back that fits up in this slot. And then there's, when I put the brackets on, there should be 3 knurled screws. Now, I was down at Barrington, Illinois over on Saturday to the Hopeful Hearts concert, and Jasper Sanfilippo had two Orthophonics on display just like mine, and I looked at the back of them, and the back has a split going down the center. So this center knurled thing must hold both of the sides on. I can't figure why it had to be that way. I also don't know why it had to be, the back had to be easily removed, because I don't know unless you needed to service something in this side of it. Maybe the motor. Maybe you had to take it off so you can get up and work on the motor. That's the only thing I can figure. So I may just use a single piece of plywood and cut a tongue in it and live with that. We'll see. So here it is, somewhat assembled. The bottom's on. I got all the doors on and the top on. Top's only mounted with 2 screws on the top part of the hinge in case I have to take it off, because I got to fix up the mechanism. Needs a little bit of oiling and fixing up. But that's it for now. It's together, and there's still work to be done.